Well, hello there again. I think yesterday's video, I haven't went back and looked at it because that's one of those things I do. Is I really don't edit them. I know I say this quite a bit, um, but I also don't really rewatch them. I don't know. Uh, so I'm pretty sure I was leading into my lack of education today. If not, that's what I'm going to be talking about anyways because it came up in psychology class today. Um, so I used to be intelligent, and it could still be in there. It could still be there somewhere. I have had two IQ tests in my life, two. Um, One in Kentucky where they said I had an IQ of 139, and one in Virginia where they said I had an IQ of 149. A 10-point difference. I don't know why there was a 10-point difference, but um, when we were talking about today in class, it was brought up that it could have just been, depending on how I felt. 10 points really isn't that much, even though, yeah. So, and that's true, 10 points is not that much. It's very minute and doesn't really account for much of anything. It is still just above average. But I was a smart, I was an intelligent child, and I knew this. I knew I was. Um, but I didn't walk around like it. I questioned, I asked a lot of questions because I wanted to make sure I had the right answers. And I wanted to learn to read so bad. I really wanted to learn to read. Um, but here's the problem. Growing up in an area where the educational system says your parents don't matter, and they actually say this to your face. Your parents don't matter. What your parents have to say, don't listen to your parents. When it comes to your education, you have to listen to us. And this is teachers saying this to a 4, 5, 6, 7 year old child. And then they throw in that they'll have you taken away from your family if you continue to disobey them. Now, understand, all this was me questioning teachers on what they were teaching us in class. Or if I did not understand something, I would raise my hand and ask, can you please explain that a little differently because I don't understand. And often my parents had been already working with me on things because that's the way it was growing up. My parents worked with me and my sisters, or my sisters and I, sorry, um, to make sure that we would have these skills, the knowledge of basic education, so we could excel when it came down to education. Um, it was neat little things like learn to count to 100 and you get a penny for every number. Not only did I learn that there are 100 cents in a dollar, but I learned how to count all the way to 100. That's one of the things that my dad did that and mom did that I remember quite fondly because you figured out a way to take and teach two things. And that was just neat for me. That was neat when I'm thinking I'm going to be getting 100 little copper pennies, and then he hands me a dollar. And I said, "This isn't 100 pennies," and he's like, "Yes, it is. It's it represents 100 pennies." And that just blew my little mind. I was 3, maybe 4. No, I was younger. I wasn't in school yet. So let's skip past Head Start, because Head Start, I barely remember anything about Head Start, and I do recall that they were very. Uh, it was just goofing off, pretty much, in Head Start, learning to tie your shoes, stuff like that. Um, but once I got in grade school, it was all this. They would threaten to take you away from your parents if you try to do things the way your parents taught you, because there was a new way of doing things, and the way that my parents were taught was the old way, and they wouldn't have that. And I heard that speech given so many times when I was a child, along with "I'll grab you by your arm and have you down at the office so fast that your head will break off, or your neck will snap," or whichever one that they wanted to put in there. And that was all because of asking questions. um, so we'll jump up to my third grade year, back in Kentucky, back at the elementary school I first went to when I was younger. And they had me in gifted classes in second grade. First and second grade, I was in gifted classes because my parents didn't want to. They believed what is apparently a myth. We learned this today. It's a myth to believe that when you allow your children to go ahead a grade or a couple of grade levels, that it causes them problems socially. In fact, most of the time they're already socially developed to go ahead when they can, which would make sense why I've always gotten along with people older than me than people my own age. Um, in third grade, they didn't have any special classes here at this school. Um, so I was just going to regular classes. And I was doing good. I was, getting grades. I started playing football because, I was young. I wanted to impress my dad, um, which that wasn't what he wanted me doing, anyways. Him and mom both supported me just because they thought it was what I wanted to do. Um, yeah, I had good grades, but then the bad thing happened when the teacher decided she was going to predict who would do the best on a spelling test. I think they had just moved her niece into that class. And she said, "Well, my niece is smart and she's going to get the highest grade out of anyone on the spelling test. And I don't want anybody making fun of her, blah, blah, blah," stuff like that. Of course, she's calling her out in the open. But we take the test, and lo and behold, I have the highest score in the class. Um, what happens to me? I get accused of cheating, even though I'm not sitting there. And not only do I get accused of cheating, I get moved into a little corner, um, away from everybody, facing away from the front of the class. There's basically, let's say where the camera is, there's a wall. There's a desk here, there's a shelf over here, and then a shelf here. I was boxed in just without anything behind me. And that's where I sat for the most of that year. Not receiving any work, not receiving any attention, because I was too poor to be smart, is what this stupid, enormously fat bitch of a teacher stated to me. Said, you come from a poor family, you can't be doing this. You're obviously cheating. And stupid me, I never told anyone. It wasn't until my parents kind of started questioning my lower grades that they came in. And it was unannounced, which is something that they didn't like. They didn't like, and well, she didn't know. They didn't inform her, the teacher who had stuck me in the corner. And when they stepped into the classroom, they're looking for me. Where am I? And the students say, he's in the corner. He's been there for a while. Then it's brought up that, I've missed out on all the math, all the spelling, all the reading. They quickly transferred me to another class to finish out the year, which is only like 3 weeks. That teacher, she did her best to work with me to try to help me out. And then we get up to 4th grade, where my grades are suffering because of all the things I missed out on. I threw fits with my parents whenever they would try to teach me things because I still believe that I would be taken away if I learned things the way that they were trying to teach me. Because that you're being told like that when you're a child, it's scary. You don't want to lose your family, and they in 4th grade it gets even worse because the teacher, which she doesn't seem to remember any of this, so I won't go too much on it, but she too also didn't like the idea that I questioned her and that I needed help with things. I did demonstrations in front of the class from things I'd see on Bill Nye the Science Guy and stuff like that, but I was doing stuff that I shouldn't have been doing, basically, because I should have been a higher grade level up, but there's still some things lacking, like I didn't know how to do multiplication. Still have a hard time with multiplication. You can confuse me by saying what's 12 times 12, and it's gotten to an impulsive point that I can distract people long enough to say 144, but I missed out on that time to learn that. And so, again, that fucking fat bitch from 3rd grade, she ruined my life pretty much. And in fact, I found out today that she may have. So we'll go on ahead and we'll skip around a little bit. They try to get my parents to put me in special ed. Well, my mom and dad's like, no, he's smart. We've had tests prove that he's smart. We're not going to stick him in special ed. I have a writing portfolio I have to do. We don't have a computer at the house. But again, this school is deciding to make everything status. This was before you even saw in the news about families needing computers for school. They were saying that I had to have things typed up, and this was before the public library had a computer and a printer. That doesn't come along until a couple more years. But anyways, I need to type up my stories for my writing portfolio, and they get to the teacher who is the writing portfolio tutor. So I'm staying after school doing this. They get to her and give her this packet of dinosaur things. And at the time, loved dinosaurs. Still love dinosaurs. Can't wait for Jurassic Park 4 to come out. I wish they'd hurry it up. Or at least another good dinosaur film. But it had a record in it and all kinds of things, dinosaur things. Two records, actually. One was this big record that had a story on it, and one was a small record that had just one song. And it had this big giant paper dinosaur that you put together. It was like 3 feet long or something like that. It was enormous to a child. But she told me that I should let my parents know that I want to be in special ed, because if I go into special ed, they go on lots of field trips. And one of the places they go is to take kids to see dinosaur skeletons, fossils, museums in general, because I had also interest in art at the time. And my eyes lit up, and I went home that night and I told my mom and dad I wanted to be in special ed. And I said what I was told to say. Class is just too hard. I can't handle it. The numbers and the letters and everything that's just confusing me, and I think I would benefit from it. So my parents, thinking that's what I truly wanted, that I might have actually needed, they had me put in. And worst decision, not on their part, worst decision on my part, because I questioned things at that age. I should have questioned that. My mom still beats herself up over it. And I know Dad, he beat himself up over it, even up until his heart surgery, because he apologized to me about it. Get in there, it's basically just a fuck around class. Well, I say that. I tend to forget there was like 3 weeks that we had an actual teacher in there. When I first went into special ed, she tried to teach me math. She sat down. She had taught me division in like a day, and multiplication. I'd learn it. And I was using it, and I was learning division better than multiplication for some reason. And she was helping me read. I read. I had the makings of Jurassic Park book, and I read it to her. I was excited because she was excited, and then they moved her to another school, and that was real sad because she gave us little brown bags with cards in them, and she cried and hugged us all, and it was just sad. And then the next person that got in there thought it was important that 4th and 5th graders knew how to write checks. Oh, and fuck around. Because after that, it was go to school and do nothing. Sit at a table, listen to her go on about her day, and then, well, recess, and recess was the rest of the day. I used to sit and she would just do her one-on-ones that she was supposed to do. Just watch kids out in the playground behind her and just play, because she had a window behind her, and it was just annoying her going. It was one-on-ones, and she's just sitting there. Well, my day's pretty bad, and shit like that. 5th grade, I missed most of that year. I busted my knee open, and then I had to have a surgery on my balls, and then I go into middle school, and basically they put me in. There was this new type of collaboration thing that they were doing where, let's not teach him, let's just give him the answers. So I passed middle school with a D. I didn't do anything. I didn't have to really work. And then, if I tried to learn, I got jumped onto. they actually stopped some of us from trying to learn. But instead, they didn't stick me in the classes because my mom and dad requested I wouldn't not be in the classes. And then in high school, tried to test out. Now here's a funny thing. I'm leaving out of middle school. I can't forget. It happened in seventh grade. That's when I decided that school's not doing shit for me. I need to do shit for myself. I'd actually talked my parents into getting me a video game. Resident Evil 2 for the Nintendo 64. If I did good in school, which I didn't tell them at the time, school's just giving me grades. So it was agreed if I can pass, I could get the game. Well, I got the game with money of mine. And Resident Evil 2 led to. My parents were skeptic about it because it was a much more rated game. So Dad would sit and watch me play it. And he had actually started playing it too on the different scenario, which was kind of cool because if you know anything about Resident Evil 2, there's two scenarios. You got, there's actually 4 different scenarios altogether. You got Claire A, Leon B, Leon A, and Claire B, and so like 4 different scenarios. But I was playing Claire, and he would play Leon while I was at school, and he would sit there, and if you've ever played any Resident Evil, you know there's files you find, and it started off with I was playing it by myself, and I found a file, and I couldn't read it. I couldn't read all of it, and so I had to ask him to come help me read it, and by the time I finished the game, I could read all the files in the game, thanks to Dad helping me out. Thanks to me finding that one thing that held interest for me. I wound up getting comic books. I read a Tom Clancy novel. I can't even remember which one it was. I read a Tom Clancy novel, though, right after playing that. And that was cool, because I went from what they said, I had a 3rd grade reading level at 7th grade to surpassing every fucker in my class. And it was fun. It was awesome. And I read these big books, and people would be like, oh, look at Harry Potter. Oh, won't you read that? And won't you read Lord of the Rings? And then I would start reading them, but I didn't like them. And people were like, oh, it's just because you can't read, you're in special ed. I'm like, no, I don't like the writing style. And I would find these other books like The Hatchet and Brian's Winter that I really loved, which that's apparently my favorite things to read about is survivalism and stuff like that. War and survival, and so I just had different interests than other people. I still don't like Harry Potter. But, that's when I learned to read, was 7th grade, and that's just wild that it took a video game, and I've, for years, boasted that video games need to leave files in them. So stupid kids like me who make decisions like that could learn to read, and around that time, that's when I decided I had to start teaching myself things, and I focused on the reading all through high school just to make sure that by the time I got to college, I'd be at a college reading level. Even when I would try to opt out of being in special ed, that was the main thing they would try to get me to opt out with. But math, I have trouble learning. It's like learning a different language to me. I know a little bit of Japanese, but the problem is I can know it one day, and the fact that I go to sleep, I can lose it all during my sleep. But yeah, that's my problem with my education is at a young age I let them talk me into doing something stupid. Now the problem is they told me my 12th grade year that I could sign a paper and have those files burnt. Those files saying I was in special ed burnt after 7 years. And I've been counting it. It's been 6 years. I'm like, man, next year they're going to burn those folders. No one will realize that. I will have problems with getting jobs. That was until I found out today that's a lie that they tell people. It'll always be on my record. And it left me with a very sick feeling in the pit of my stomach today that I'm going after a psychology degree. Whether or not I'm going to get a doctorate in it or not, I don't know. I'm going also after an English degree. I could get them, but what use is it if I can't get a job because I'm labeled as mentally retarded? I'm uneducated. I'm not retarded. I made a stupid decision. Doesn't make me retarded. But that's what I'm labeled as. And the scary part is there's a lot of other people out there just like me. So it's just pisses me off. Oh, I did get to go to a museum, but didn't get to see any dinosaur bones. I didn't see any dinosaur bones until roughly, let's see, what year was it? I was out of high school. It was probably the year before I moved into this apartment, so in 2008. It was June of 2008, I think. I got to see a raptor skeleton at the Science Center across the road from where I live at now. So, fancy me. Finally got to see them dinosaur bones. So, yeah. I'm going to try to come up with some better things to talk about from now on. I want to go back on some old subjects and talk about them. I want to go on some new subjects and talk about them. Definitely want to talk about global warming and why the world isn't made for us, despite what Christians want to say. How it isn't that perfect symmetry and blah blah blah. Y'all probably know the shtick. Again, I'd still like to do something with this freaking background. It seems too plain. But I actually got to get up and clean the apartment here. Because they do inspections every last Friday of the month. And that is approaching soon, seeing that I'm filming this Wednesday. It'll be online Thursday. Oh, man. And I got to go over to the college and teach someone how to play Magic the Gathering tomorrow. Fuck me. Well, anyways. Thumbs up, thumbs down, subscribe, comment, hate me, love me, punch me in the face. I don't know. I have no sign off whatsoever. Maybe that's my sign off. No sign off. Just peace out.